air under diaphragm. In this video I am going to talk about air under diaphragm. Air under diaphragm is one of the commonest X-ray you will get in your clinical examination. Okay, so what are the learning outcomes? Number one, you will know that how to read the X-ray of the chest as well as abdomen, and what are the findings are there in this X-ray. And the commonest cause for air under the diaphragm is the perforative peritonitis, and we are going to discuss the treatment aspect of the perforative peritonitis also. Okay, so just watch this X-ray. Okay, so this X-ray is an X-ray of the chest, PA view, including the upper part of the abdomen. Okay, so here you can able to see this is the lung field. On both sides you can able to see the lung field, and this is the cardiac shadow, and this is the upper part of the abdomen. Okay, so the lung field and the cardiac shadow, it looks like normal one. The most important thing from the surgical aspect is this one, that is the diaphragm. This is right hemidiaphragm, this is the left diaphragm. Okay, normally under the diaphragm, usually in the right diaphragm, what you get? You will get a liver. So you don't get any air shadows, that is black shadows. So if any black shadows or air shadows are there, then you have to think about air under the diaphragm. So here in this X-ray you can able to visualize. Okay, so you can able to visualize the air shadow. Okay, air shadow under the right dome of the diaphragm as well as in the left dome of the diaphragm. Okay, so this is the first finding you are picking up in this X-ray. The second finding is you are seeing a ground glass appearance. Okay, this is upper part of the abdomen, ground glass appearance. You can't able to see anything properly. Usually you can able to see some air shadows because of the small bowel or presence of air in the stomach. You can able to see the air shadow, but here it is not, you can't able to see anything. That is gives a ground glass appearance. Okay, so ground glass appearance is mainly because of the presence of fluid in the peritoneal cavity, whereas air under the diaphragm is mainly due to the presence of air within the peritoneal cavity, and that one is called as pneumoperitoneum. Okay, so next we are going to discuss about what are the causes for pneumoperitoneum. Okay, the number one, the most important cause is the perforation of an hollow viscus. Okay, this is the most common cause for pneumoperitoneum, and even that there are a lot of causes for that perforation. So if you take hollow viscus in the abdominal cavity, these are the hollow viscus. In stomach, it may be due to perforation of one gastric ulcer or an peptic ulcer disease. In duodenum, peptic ulcer disease. In small intestine, typhoid, that is, a typhoid is very common condition, and tuberculous ulcer can also cause perforation, particularly in the terminal ileum. And the large intestine, either it may be due to inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, or else blunt injury of the abdomen. So this is the first cause. Among the first case, these are the causes for the hollow viscous perforation. So next, these are all other causes for the perforation of the air under diaphragm. Okay, number one is the penetrating injury. So anything by sharp object, is there anything is penetrating, or stab injury, so you can get air under diaphragm. Blunt injury, the blunt injury that causes the tear in the intestine or any hollow viscous perforation, there also you can get pneumoperitoneum. Bullet injury, and main thing is this one, that is the post-lap or laparotomy. Post-laparoscopic surgeries or laparotomy, in the immediate post-operative period, you can able to see the air under the diaphragm. And this test, this is very important, that is the tubal insufflation test. Okay, so consider this is a uterus and the fallopian tube is there. So this tubal insufflation test is primarily useful in infertility cases, that is HCG, that is hysterosalpingogram HSG, that is hysterosalpingogram. So you inject the dye or inflate the air and you try to assess the patency of the fallopian tube. Because the fallopian tubes are communicated to the peritoneal cavity, ultimately you can get air under the diaphragm. So this is one of the diagnostic tests where you can get air under the diaphragm. And last one is the Chilaiditi sign. It is not a cause for pneumoperitoneum. It is not a cause for pneumoperitoneum. It is one of the differential diagnosis. So I just want to show this is one of the radiological illusion. So what happened in case of abdomen? This is abdomen, and you got a liver. Okay. Normally, between the diaphragm and the liver, this is diaphragm and liver, you don't get any air packets. Sometimes what will happen if you get any colon, that is a particularly transverse colon. Okay, if the transverse colon is struck between the diaphragm and the liver, you will get an appearance of pneumoperitoneum, that is air under the diaphragm. This is one of the radiological illusion. This sign is called as Chilaiditi sign. Okay, but it is not a cause of pneumoperitoneum. So one of the differential diagnosis you can put. Next, as you all know that appendix is also an hollow viscous, but there is no air under diaphragm. What is the cause? Even in appendicular perforation, you don't get much air under diaphragm. The reason is very simple. Number one is the appendix is a small tubular organ. Okay, appendix is a small tubular organ. And number two, so if the small tubular organ, if it perforates, it produces only a minimal amount of gas. So minimal amount of gas is released. And then number two is the distance. So it is present in right iliac fossa. The air has to reach from right iliac fossa to the right hypochondrial region. So that is more distance. So because of these reasons, even in appendicular perforation, you don't get air under the diaphragm. Next we are going to discuss about the clinical features of peptic ulcer perforation. So peptic ulcer perforation is one of the commonest cause for air under the diaphragm. So here we are going to discuss first the history. The pain abdomen. The patient will complaining of the pain abdomen, and so that initially the pain will be there in the epigastric region or in the right hypochondrial region, and then gradually the pain will be traveling from right hypochondrial to the right iliac region, and then generalized, it is going generalized. So what is the reason? Because of the perforation, what will happen? All the fluid from the right hypochondrial and epigastric region, it travels through the right paracolic gutter and reaches the right iliac fossa, and then it spreads to the general to the all the compartment. So that causes the peritonitis. So this is the first symptom, that is the pain abdomen. Next one is the vomiting. Vomiting will be there, and fever will also be there. And main thing, because of the fluid distension, you will get abdominal distension. And one more important thing, the patient will give you a past history of peptic ulcer disease. So these are the things you will elicit in history. So next we are going to discuss about the examination. In the examination, first one is general examination. General examination, as perforation is there, then the patient will be in a shock state. So these are all features of the shock, that is particularly patient in the hypovolemic shock. So tachycardia, so increased pulse rate, then BP, that is hypotension, then dehydration will be there, and patient will be febrile and toxic in nature. So these are all general examination findings. Then followed by abdominal examination, that is a local examination. So what happened in local examination? So we all know that all the quadrants of all the regions of the abdomen, Usually it will move with the respiration. But here the movement with the respiration is affected because of the peritonitis. Number one. Number two, because of the inflammation and the muscle will go for a rigid state, that is patient will be having a guarding and rigidity, and because of fluid collection you will get distension, and because of all these things, if you examine the patient will be having tenderness. The tenderness will be present throughout the abdomen. And the main important point here is the obliteration of the liver dullness. What is this obliteration of liver dullness? Okay, so liver is present, and if you percuss, that is a liver span, you have to percuss the liver in 5, 6, 7 intercostal space. Over this region, if you percuss, particularly you are percussing from the rib cage, 5, 6, 7 spaces in the right hypochondral region, you will get dullness because of the presence of the liver. So what will happen here? In between the diaphragm and liver, the air is collecting. Okay, air is collecting and displacing the liver downwards. So what will happen? Instead of dullness, you will get resonant. So that is called liver dullness obliteration. And last finding is the bowel sounds. If you auscultate, the bowel sounds will be absent because the peristalsis, okay, stagnation of fluid causes the peristalsis will be absent and the bowel sounds will be absent. Next we are going to discuss about the investigation or stages of peritonitis. After that we will go for investigation. Stages of peritonitis, there are 3 stages are there. Number 1 is chemical peritonitis. Number 2 is stage of elution or peritoneal reaction. Number 3 is bacterial peritonitis. What is this stage of chemical peritonitis? So usually because of the perforation, okay, you got this is the stomach is there and duodenum is there. You got a perforation at this first part of the duodenum. What will happen? Once perforated, all the contents, okay, all the content from the perforated, it will enter into the peritoneal cavity. So that all these are gastric juices or chemicals that causes the inflammation of the peritoneum, that is called chemical peritonitis. Then followed by, so to dilute these chemical peritonitis, peritoneum is secreting excess fluids and try to dilute these gastric juices. That is called stage of peritoneal reaction or elution. And third one is the bacterial proliferation. Okay, because of this stagnation, there is a bacterial proliferation, and that causes peritonitis. That is called bacterial peritonitis or stage 3. Okay, so these all are 3 stages of the peritonitis. So next we are going to discuss about investigations. So all the blood investigation, that is basic blood investigation you need because the patient in hypolimic state, and hemoglobin percentage, random blood sugar, and the counts, particularly DC, total count, the differential count, ESR, and urea, creatinine, and all these investigation, including chest X-ray that we already discussed. ECG is a must, and electrolytes, serum electrolytes is a must to assess the electrolyte abnormalities. Okay, so with that investigations, you have to proceed for the treatment. 2 treatments are there, not 2 treatments, one by one. First one is the medical treatment, that is resuscitation, followed by exploratory laparotomy. What is the first treatment? Resuscitation. That is, most of the patient, they will be in the hypovolemic shock. You keep the patient nil per oral, giving rest to the gastrointestinal tract, then followed by nasogastric tube aspiration, that is decompress the stomach, then intravenous fluids, parenteral fluids, okay, Ringer lactate, normal saline, and DNS, and then followed by intravenous antibiotic to control the infection, mostly 3rd generation cephalosporins, metronidazole, and aminoglycosides like amikacin or gentamicin, depends upon the renal function. Then main thing is, apart from this treatment, you have to monitor the vitals, that is pulse rate, BP, respiratory rate, temperature, monitoring the vitals to assess the whether the patient is stable or not. Once the patient is stabilized, then you can plan for a procedure called explorative laparotomy. Here, there are two things you have to do. One is called closure of the perforation. Another one is peritoneal lavage. Okay, so next I am going to discuss about laparotomy, that is explorative laparotomy, that is operative surgery. How will you do that one? Okay, so here, as like any other surgery, the patient position is supine position. Then anesthesia, it will be a general anesthesia. Then incision, where to put the incision? Here you have to put an upper midline vertical incision. In case of suspected peptic ulcer perforation, you have to put an upper midline vertical incision. Then you try to open the layers. The first layer you will open the skin, then followed by the subcutaneous tissue, then linea alba. In the midline you open the linea alba and followed by peritoneum. Once you open, you reach the peritoneal cavity. Then what you have to do? You try to explore. So where all, first you try to find out the pathology. So in our case, try to look in the stomach and duodenum. Okay, look for any perforation in the stomach anterior wall and duodenal anterior wall. If there is perforation, you try to correct the perforation closure. Suppose you can't able to find out any perforation in this location, then what you have to do? You have to open the greater omentum and go to the lesser sac. Try to find out any perforation in the posterior wall of the stomach, and still there is no perforation. Try to assess any perforation in small intestine, large intestine, or in the rectum. So other things, is there any other causes of perforation is there, you have to assess completely. So that is the main thing. But once you diagnose some perforation is there in the duodenal wall, then you have to do a procedure called Gregham's patch closure technique. So what is this Gregham's patch closure technique? Okay, so this is the stomach and first part of the duodenum. Okay, consider this is an perforation, small perforation in the first part of the duodenum. Then you have to take 3 sutures, that is particularly using polyglactin, 3 sutures. One suture proximal to the perforation, another suture, third suture distal to the perforation, and this one, that is in the central, you have to take through the perforation site. So 3 sutures you have to take, one through the center of the perforation, and another one, upper one, and that is a proximal aspect you take one, and distal aspect you take one. Then you have the omentum. So here you got the omentum is there. Okay, you take the part of the omentum and completely close the perforation. Okay, then you try to put the sutures. Okay, try to put the sutures like this. Okay, completely. Okay, by this is called Gregham's omental patch closure. By these you will close the perforation. Okay, so this is the technique you will use in case of perforation of the duodenal ulcer. Okay, this is the first step you have to do it in your surgery, and followed by peritoneal lavage. Okay, thoroughly you clean the entire peritoneal cavity using the normal saline. Okay, because lot of contamination will be there, try to correct that one. And finally you try to keep a drain, that is 2 drains, ideally 2 drains you can keep, one at the level of the hepatorenal pouch and another one at the level of the pelvis, because these 2 areas are the most dependent part. Fluid collection will deposit here. You try to drain by keeping a tube drain, and then you have to close the wound layer by layer.